What was the other thing I was going to say? Yeah. Uh-oh.
Hey all, welcome to episode 13 of Retired Renovators. This is a YouTube channel that my husband Gary and I started to document the renovations that we're doing on our 1908 Paducah, Kentucky big brick house and carriage house. We're currently working on the carriage house and we're at the drywall stage. If you watched episode 12, you heard me talk about the tools that we're using and also that we've been trying to find someone to do the drywall. At that time, we had gone through two different quotes that, for whatever reason, didn't work out. Thought maybe there was a third guy who could do it. Turns out he could not. Long story that I don't need to get into. And so anyway, we came to the conclusion that we really needed to do this ourselves. Now, Gary and I are hanging the drywall together, but I am mudding alone. And we made that decision because there's all sorts of things that he can be doing right now that it's sort of a one-man show, and we thought that I could learn to do the mudding, and sort of why have both of us learn when one could do it. I've looked at a lot of videos about how to mud drywall, and I've read a lot of books, as I mentioned in the last episode. But one thing I noticed is, it makes sense. It's all experts talking about how to do drywall, and so they have this expertise as they're demonstrating it. And as a beginner, I've realized that a beginner does not have that ability to use the tools the way these experts do. And so I thought it would be helpful for a beginner, me, very much a novice at this, to share what I've learned and demonstrate how to do this. Because if you're doing this for your own house, the chances are very high that you're going to do this once, maybe twice, like we'll be doing it for the carriage house and the big house. But you're not going to do this for a trade. You're not going to sub yourself out to other people. You're doing it for your own house. You're learning how to do it. You're never going to be an expert at it. And so, it's about trying to do it good enough so the walls, are not an embarrassment as you finish. So that's the approach I'm taking here. I have found a couple of really helpful YouTube channels. One is Vancouver Carpenter, and he does demonstrate things in a way that is really helpful. And I just found a video recently where he works with a beginner, so that's a good one to check out. And then also another video, I think it's called Jane Loves Drills. A woman, Leah, has put this YouTube channel together, and she has 775,000 subscribers. So she's pretty amazing. And I like the Jane YouTube video because if you are like me, a woman trying to do renovations and constructions, it's really rare to see women demonstrate how to do this. And there are some differences when you're not this brute strength hunk of a person. So anyway, that's the whole reason why I thought this would be helpful. Now, before I get into the demonstration, again, I want to give you a couple ideas. If you remember from episode 12, I was mudding the closet. And so my first recommendation is that you go to the hardest part of the house that you're renovating if it's hidden. So a closet is a really good place to start. It will have all of the challenges that you need for learning drywall, but it won't be seen very much, and so that's a good way to practice. But I'm in the bathroom now, and I'm feeling pretty confident to be able to do at least an okay job, and so that's where we're moving on from that. The three things that I think beginners need in order to do a halfway decent job with drywalling is to give up this idea of doing paper embedded seam taping. It's really hard, even though, yes, that's superior, and the experts talk about why you want to do that instead. This mesh stuff goes on super easy, and you don't have to worry about bubbles underneath the tape. And that's the bugaboo for beginners. I mean, I've worked for hours trying to not get bubbles on my tape and still get bubbles, and so I finally just said forget it. On these long seams, I'm going with mesh. It has saved me hours of heartache, and I think this is strong enough. There's different strengths. This is a particularly theoretically strong one, so I highly recommend you give up the idea of paper, go with mesh. Second of all, on your outside corners, highly recommend that you go with a plastic or metal corner bead that is specifically made for outside corners. You merely need to staple this stuff on, and it's going to assure that you have a pretty smooth, or help you have a pretty smooth seam. So that is a really great thing. And third is the inside corner tape. So the experts will show you the regular tape that they fold in half and talk about, all that. But again, I found that too difficult. So this mid-flex corner tape is specifically made for corners. It's really stiff, and it has some sort of heft to it that hides blemishes. Goes in, you still have to embed it like the other paper tape, but I'm going to show you ways to really work through that. So these three things, from a beginner's perspective, I believe is going to help you do a halfway decent job in mudding and drywall. So all these videos that talk about this being super easy, I don't find it easy at all. I think the people who do this for a living are amazing. I cannot imagine doing this for a living. Let's get started. Let me show you what I'm doing in the bathroom. All right, I'm going to mud this corner with the tape, which I've cut a little bit short so I have room to use the tape on the top and the bottom. Now, the challenge here is that this area is over the toilet, which we had put in early because we thought it would be great to have a toilet. Turns out all our sewer pipes are broken. You'll see info about that on a future video, so we can't use the toilet, but still it makes it a pretty awkward place to get into. So Gary built me this rigged little area to climb, so we'll see how I do as I go into this corner. All right. What I'm doing now is I'm standing over the toilet. So I'm going to mud this corner. You first put the mud in the corner, and then you put the nifty little folded thing. So let's put that aside where I can reach it. Put enough that you have the enough to embed, but not so much that it's going to be lumpy and never dry. And that was the thing that was really hard for me to figure out in the closet, was how much is too much, how much is not enough. So I've settled on this idea of I put a good amount on, make sure it's covered on both sides, and then I'm going to take off some excess, making sure that there's mud all the way down, and then embed the corner piece. I'm using a 4-inch knife for this, and I discovered that there's flexible and stiff knives. So this is a stiff one that, kind of works well for putting the first mud down for me, and then as I go through the layers, I move more to a more flexible one. So learn from the experts and then figure out what works for you. And I like to do both sides before I start scraping anything off. I'm feeling pretty good about this platform that Gary built for me. So he's really good about solving problems. You want to make sure it's a little bit wider than your tape, but not too wide, because each layer you do has to be wider than the layer before. So, if you can see, I don't know if you can see what I have on my corner here. Here's how much is left on the hawk. I'm going to take some off and then see, you'll be able to tell how much I took off. I just make a kind of a nice, smooth, with a little bit of pressure, but not too much pressure. Okay, and then this is what I ended up with, taking off. All right, now we're going to put on the corner bead. Okay, and I push it into the corner. Kind of rub it like that. And I make pushing down fairly hard. I'm going to make a run down one side and a run down the other side. Now here's one spot where, one of many, where the experts and I diverge. So the experts, they're done at that point. So I don't know why I'm not, but I can see there's little wrinkles here. So either, you know, I don't have enough strength to get it pushed all the way down, or, you know, something. So I have to end up doing it lots and lots of times. So I'm going to run through it again and press particularly hard when I see a gap. And I've got more goop coming out. Goop is the technical word for mud. I talked about Myron Ferguson in the last video. He is beyond an expert in a drywall. So he talks about you do this until nothing squeezes out of the side. And so I found that helpful, but the challenge is you want not to have any excess in there, but you also have to have enough for the tape to adhere to it. So it's finding that balance that I find kind of challenging. So I'm taking off excess here. While I'm doing this, if you all are still watching, this would be an excellent time to hit the subscribe button. Mean a lot to us as we're trying to build the YouTube channel. It doesn't cost you anything. We're not coming after you, don't worry. So it's just a way to tell YouTube that someone is watching the channel. So I'd appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. Also, if you're an expert who happens to stumble on this video, be kind. I'm trying my hardest. So I'm doing this multiple times. I got to make sure that there are no bubbles, because if there's any wrinkles in this, it's just going to get worse as you go. And so that's the thing about drywall mud. You can't really solve mistakes on each layer, or I can't solve mistakes on each layer. So I'm still having some extra coming out. You can see how you've got extra stuff on the side, so you want to make sure that's as smooth as possible. Now the experts will tell you that you don't have to sand until you get to the last layer. My feeling is you can work toward that, but I don't know. I'm guessing I'm going to have to do some sanding anyway. So I'm checking these corners, seeing if anything is coming out, but making sure it adheres, pushing down really hard. Okay, so the experts would be way on to something else by now. So Except the fact, if you're a beginner, this is going to take way longer. Okay, I'm kind of seeing this bubble in here that I'm going to work that out. I know at this point the experts are saying, would you just move on? But I gotta make sure that this is adhering. Okay, I'm starting to feel better about it. All right. Just checking the corners, the edges again. Really kind of pushing them down. Okay, so that looks pretty good to me, or as good as I can make it, so I'm gonna let that go. All right, I'm down. Hooray!